I knew they had already decided who I was before I even sat down. The way his mother's eyes scanned my dress, the way his sister smirked into her wine, the way the table went quiet when I said my name. Then his mother smiled and asked softly, "So, what exactly are you to my son?" My throat closed, my hands trembled under the table, and that's when he leaned in and whispered the words that changed everything. "Pretend I'm your husband, right now." The house looked like it belonged on the cover of a magazine. White lights wrapped around marble pillars, garlands thicker than my entire apartment rent. I told myself to breathe, to act normal, to remember I was invited. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt it. That invisible wall that only certain people can see. Part 1B. Every woman in that room wore confidence like perfume. I wore survival, and they could smell the difference. I wasn't nervous because of the CEO title. I was nervous because rooms like this never forgive women like me. I never imagined walking into a Christmas dinner would feel like stepping onto a stage, every judgmental eye in the room waiting to tear me apart. Then, as my humiliation peaked, he leaned in and whispered, "Pretend I'm your husband." That single moment changed everything. I was sitting at my desk, nervously twisting the fabric of my dress in my hands when my phone buzzed. A new email notification appeared. "You're invited to our family Christmas dinner." My heart skipped. Professionally, this was an honor. Dinner with the CEO's family could open doors I had only dreamed of. But personally, I felt a wave of anxiety. I knew his family was intimidating, poised, and judgmental. I stared at my reflection in the computer screen. My dress felt wrong. My hair wasn't perfect. My makeup seemed off. Every detail I had spent hours perfecting suddenly felt inadequate. I couldn't help but wonder, could I survive this night without embarrassing myself? I ran my fingers over the fabric of my dress again, feeling the smooth silk and the slight chill of the evening seeping through my palms. My chest tightened, and my mind raced with scenarios of judgment, whispers, and subtle smirks. When I finally arrived at the grand house, the air seemed thick with expectation. Every sound of laughter and clinking silverware felt amplified, like a spotlight was shining directly on me. His mother appeared first, immaculate, composed, her smile polite but distant, not quite reaching her eyes. Every gesture she made felt deliberate, measured, and somehow evaluating. The cousins whispered behind their hands, and I could feel the weight of their curiosity, small, scrutinizing glances that made my stomach churn. Every corner of the room seemed to judge me. I gripped my coat tighter around me, as if I could shield myself from the piercing stares. The warmth from the fireplace and the smell of roasted turkey couldn't ease the cold fear creeping up my spine. My confidence, which I carried like armor at work, seemed to vanish the moment I stepped into that room. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears, a reminder that I was an outsider here, fragile and exposed. Dinner began, and I felt like I had stepped onto a stage. "Ah, you must be the assistant?" His aunt's voice was sweet, but each word carried a subtle sting. I forced a smile, hoping it seemed natural. But as I tried to make small talk about the dessert menu, I stumbled over my words. A little laugh escaped from one of the cousins, and my face heated instantly. I could feel my cheeks burning, my hands trembling slightly under the table. Every eye seemed to linger a second too long on me. I laughed weakly, a hollow sound, but inside I was shrinking. My mind screamed, "Don't make a fool of yourself, just stay calm." I wanted to disappear. I imagined the floor opening beneath me, swallowing me whole, and for a moment I wished it would. Conversation turned to family stories. Grand vacations in Europe, elite schools, childhood achievements. I had none of that to share. I tried to contribute a story about my childhood, but my words faltered. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on me. every whisper and half-smile magnifying my shame. I sat there, clutching my napkin, wishing I could be invisible. I questioned myself. Why am I here? Why did I ever think I could belong in their perfect, polished world? Every laugh that wasn't mine, every glance not in my direction, felt like a spotlight on my inadequacy. I wanted to flee, but I forced myself to stay. I excused myself and stepped out onto the balcony, gulping in cold, crisp winter air. The city lights shimmered below, but nothing could calm the storm inside me. And then I felt his presence behind me. He leaned close, his voice low and warm. "Pretend I'm your husband." I froze. My heart raced. I turned to look at him, confused. His eyes held something protective, something intimate. In that instant, the world inside the house, the judging eyes, the whispers, suddenly didn't matter. That simple whisper became a shield. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could survive this night. As I stepped back into the dining room, something inside me shifted. The fear and anxiety that had weighed me down all evening didn't vanish completely, but now, with his hand holding mine, it felt manageable, almost like a shield against the judgmental eyes in the room. He leaned in and whispered, "Just follow my lead. Watch and relax." His words were soft but commanding, like a gentle anchor. I realized he was giving me permission to stop overthinking, to stop shrinking. That tiny act of care made me feel important, not just for the night, but in some deeper way. He then introduced me as his fiancée. The words had power. Something magical happened. Suddenly, I wasn't the outsider they were ready to judge. Their attention was now on him, and through him, on me. I felt a thrill of confidence pulse through me. I started noticing little things. My posture straightened, my voice became steadier, and my laughter sounded genuine rather than forced. I felt seen, but more importantly, I felt protected. That whisper and his presence transformed the way I experienced the room. The humiliation I had felt moments before now felt distant, almost irrelevant. Even my internal monologue changed. I thought, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can actually belong here. For the first time that night, I wasn't just surviving, I was participating. The room reacted immediately to his introduction. His mother's eyebrows shot up in surprise. Her perfectly composed face briefly showed something vulnerable. Curiosity mixed with slight disbelief. She hadn't expected me to be presented as his fiancée, and that small shift in perception rippled through the room. His aunt, who had earlier seemed sweet but subtly critical, blinked in surprise. Her polite smile wavered into a confused frown. Even the cousins, those who had been whispering and giggling at my expense, stopped mid-laugh. There was a moment of silence, as if the room itself had paused to reevaluate everything. I could feel their eyes on me, but now it wasn't judgment, it was assessment, almost like they were trying to figure out who I really was. And that realization sent a surge of empowerment through me. I felt a mix of emotions, relief, excitement, and a quiet thrill of power. Suddenly, the humiliating moments that had made me want to hide felt distant. Being with him made me feel untouchable in a way, like their scrutiny no longer had the power to define me. I realized something important. Sometimes confidence isn't just about standing tall alone. It's about having someone beside you who believes in you so fiercely that the world has to take notice. Dinner had started to feel different. With him by my side, I felt a subtle but powerful shift in myself. My chest was lighter, my shoulders less tense. The conversation that had once made me feel inadequate now seemed navigable. I began to laugh freely at jokes, even made small, witty remarks. Each laugh, each word I spoke felt like a tiny victory over the fear that had dominated the night. The warmth of the room, the glow of the chandelier, the clinking of cutlery, all of it felt less intimidating now. I noticed subtle gestures from the family, a glance that lingered a moment longer, a nod of acknowledgement, or a pause before they spoke about me. Every time he leaned in to whisper a joke or a compliment, I felt more grounded. "See, you're fine. They're just surprised," he murmured softly. Those words weren't just comforting, they reminded me that I wasn't alone, and that confidence could be borrowed from someone who truly believed in me. For the first time that evening, I began to feel like I belonged. The shame and awkwardness that had haunted me were slowly replaced with empowerment. I realized humiliation was never permanent. It could be softened, even erased by courage, support, and presence. After dessert, the room had quieted down. People were moving, chatting softly, but he gently pulled me aside onto the balcony again. The cold winter air brushed against my cheeks, a sharp contrast to the warmth inside, but I welcomed it. It felt like it woke me up to reality. He looked at me with calm, deep eyes. "You didn't need me to do that," he said, voice soft yet firm, "but I wanted you to see how they really notice people who matter to me." I felt a lump rise in my throat. In that private moment, I realized how skewed my perception had been. The humiliation wasn't truly about me. It had been magnified by assumptions, by unspoken expectations, and by the weight of family judgment. His presence reminded me that my worth wasn't determined by anyone's opinion but my own. And yet, having someone who believed in me so strongly made me recognize it more clearly. I breathed in the crisp winter air, feeling it fill me with a sense of calm and clarity. For the first time all evening, I felt safe, seen, validated. And I realized that humiliation is only temporary, but confidence, once sparked, can stay forever. As the night wore on, I found myself observing him in the way he interacted with his family. Every glance, every subtle gesture revealed respect, patience, and a quiet confidence. I noticed the way he gently guided the conversation to include me, how he subtly shifted attention when someone tried to embarrass me, and how his presence made me feel untouchable. It hit me suddenly. The humiliation I had felt earlier wasn't my fault. It had been their assumptions, their judgments, amplified by my own insecurities. And now, with him by my side, all of that melted away. I began to feel a deep, almost intoxicating sense of empowerment. I wasn't just surviving this dinner, I was participating, contributing, and even shining. The laughter I shared, the stories I told, they weren't filler anymore, they were authentic parts of me. In that moment, I realized something crucial. Sometimes the world tries to define your worth before you even speak, but having someone stand by you, someone who truly believes in you, can completely rewrite the narrative. I understood that my strength didn't come from avoiding embarrassment, but from facing it with courage and support. By the end of the dinner, the dynamic had completely shifted. I found myself laughing with his cousins, making witty comments that drew genuine smiles. His mother complimented my dress and even asked me questions about my career, showing interest rather than judgment. I could feel a mix of emotions: relief, triumph, and gratitude. The power of one whispered phrase, "Pretend I'm your husband," had not only protected me but had transformed me. I felt bold, confident, and seen in a way I hadn't expected. I realized the turning point wasn't the protection itself. It was the validation that came from his unwavering presence. I had begun the evening feeling small and invisible. Now I was standing tall, laughing freely, and commanding attention not through arrogance but through confidence and authenticity. As the evening came to an end and we walked toward the car, he slipped his hand into mine again. His warmth contrasted with the cold night air, and he whispered softly, "You were perfect tonight." I smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. That night had taught me something important. Humiliation is temporary, but confidence, respect, and connection are lasting. I reflected on the journey, from anxiety, shame, and judgment to empowerment, laughter, and genuine belonging. It wasn't just about him pretending to be my husband, it was about the courage and support he gave me to see my own worth. I realized that sometimes we need someone to remind us of our strength and value. And sometimes all it takes is one person believing in us for the world to see what we are truly capable of. That Christmas dinner, which had begun as a nightmare, ended up being one of the most transformative experiences of my life. Have you ever felt judged or humiliated, but someone's support changed everything? Comment below. I'd love to read your story. And if you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more SoulSpeak stories.